If you wanted me to do that, you should have just said.
It is amazing what direct communication can cause. Like things happening the way you want them to, when you want them to, the first time you ask. Hi, I'm Kate, and welcome to Always Tuck and Roll. We discuss life, the universe, autism, and pretty much anything else that kind of just falls out of my head. And today, I want to try something a little bit different. I know, shocking, right? Like, the only thing consistent about me is that I generally post every Thursday. Um, the what I do and how I do it, that doesn't seem to be as consistent as we might like, but here we are. Now, what I want to try to do today is I want to react to a video. Now, I've seen this video before. It's been a while though. This video was from right before I actually launched this channel formally. So it really resonated with me, but I think in a way that even the original creator wasn't anticipating, which which is what fascinated me. I am a student of culture. I love to learn. So we're gonna watch a video from Girl Gone London, and she'll be discussing cultural communication differences she has noticed since being an American in the UK. So let's get the show on the road. And bear with me. This is like the first time I have ever StreamYarded ever before. So, and my other monitor is like lying on the couch next to me. So, we're just going to go with it and hope for the best. So, here we go.
In my American brain, I thought, if you wanted me to do that, you should have just said. The first time I realized there was going to be a problem, my coworker in the UK said to me, "Hey, can you check if the upstairs window is open?" And this was just before we were about to leave the office.
That's a weird question. I feel like I would have asked like, what do you want me to do with the window when I get there? Keep it open, close it, like what's your plan? But I've also been yelled at for like too many dishes touching in a candy dish before, so like I in an effort to not get yelled at will ask a lot of really ridiculous questions. So again, I guess I'm coming at this from an autistic place of trauma. So I'm interested to see the neurodivergent or the neurotypical cultural differences.
To go to a meeting. I was new, I was fresh-faced, I was young. I mean, I was younger. I like to think I'm still young, but
You are. So am I. And I think I'm older than you. And like young compared to other people, but like you're fine.
anyway, I was also American, and I had no real idea why they cared if the upstairs window was open because there were a few other people still in the office. But I was like, sure thing, person above me in seniority, I will go check if the upstairs window is
That's
open.
fair.
So I walked upstairs and I looked at it and it was open. So I walked downstairs and I said, just checked, it's open. And they sort of stared at me and said, did you close it? And I stared back and I said, no. And they stared back even harder and said, could you go back and close it then? And
I feel like my response would have been, should I have? But again, I probably would have paranoidly already asked if that's what they wanted me to do when I left. But that's me. And coming from a place of a lot of workplace trauma.
I was like, sure, no problem. Now you're asking me to close the window, so I will go and carry out this instruction, no problem. It was quite a bit later when I realized that they were attempting to communicate with the first ask of, can you check if the window is open, that they wanted me to close the window. In my American brain, I thought, if you wanted me to do that, you should have just said.
It is amazing what direct communication can cause. Like things happening the way you want them to, when you want them to, the first time you ask. If you just ask for what you want. Americans do this. They also really, really don't do this, is the thing.
This is one of the many examples I've accumulated over the years of how Americans often struggle with British indirect communication. Compared to the Brits, Americans are very literal beings, and to a Brit, that can come across as Americans being dumb, but I'm here to assure you that there are many reasons why Americans can be dumb, but this actually isn't one of them. You see, communication is based on culture.
Also, your communication style has nothing to do with your intelligence. Just putting that out there. Your communication style has zero to do with your intelligence.
And there's a fascinating theory about high context and low context cultures.
Fair
To be
enough.
a high context culture means that there's a lot of indirect communication. It requires less explicit and laid out in front of your face communication. It relies on a shared understanding of experiences and hidden meanings, and it's all about subtlety and reading in between the lines.
Ugh, people should just say what they mean. Sounds like they're all like communicate. You got added to a group chat and they're all talking in inside jokes, and you don't know any of those inside jokes. Or, that's, yeah.
A low context culture, on the other hand, values direct, straight talking communication with little room for hidden meanings.
Give me the
It's a culture that
specifics.
expects you to take things literally when they are communicated and not have to read too far into what someone actually means because they're just going to tell you. This continuum is a spectrum.
All right, yes, definitely spectrum, because I'm just going to point out the very American, how are you today? The question you're not actually supposed to answer, but everyone asks. You know what? I answer the question because you asked me. So do not ask me the question if you do not want to know the answer. And like I figured this out, like, and I've known, but the last job I had, I was so miserable by the end of it. The best I could do when someone asked me that was present. I am present today.
Different countries are along the high context and low context spectrum. It's not just black and white, but the US
That's
trends
black and
towards the
white,
low
realistically.
context end. That is the end that requires direct communication. And the UK trends towards the high context end, allowing for a lot of implicit meaning. And it has nothing to do with intellect. Think about the histories and the makeup of the two countries themselves. I go to buildings in the UK all the time that are hundreds of years older than the US even is as a country. And while the UK is certainly changing over time,
Ah, yes. In America, 100 years is a long time, but in the UK, 100 miles is far. I mean, it doesn't. It's actually pretty accurate. It's ridiculous.
and the makeup of its citizens, its history is that of homogeny.
Actually, the jumping back onto that last thing about the whole 100 miles, 100 years. I used to live in West Virginia, but I'm originally from northern New Hampshire. Or yeah, the northern, the Northeast is much older than the rest of the country, and I was down for West Virginia's 150th birthday, and everyone's like, "It's so amazing! It's 150 years." I'm like, "Yeah, my house I grew up in is like twice as old as the state, but I'm so happy for you guys." And I wasn't being sarcastic; I was genuinely meaning that. But I also thought it was cute because, again, my house was built. My house was over 100 years old before West Virginia became a state, and you know, time she is not linear. I mean, she is, but it doesn't feel linear.
i.e., a lot of people with shared backgrounds and understandings and a lot of history to back all of this up. This kind of history creates a high context culture where subtleness can thrive. Compare this to the US, which is genuinely founded on being the land of immigrants, of people coming from a lot of different places and with a much shorter history as a country, and you've got yourself the perfect makings of a low context culture.
Yeah, if we could just get the whole country to understand that this is a nation of immigrants, a melting pot, that we all got to live on this one planet together, we would be better off. But I'm not going to get political.
We rely on direct communication in the US with little hidden meaning because this is the most effective way to communicate between people from different backgrounds and with different shared histories, and sometimes in the beginning, even different languages. Here's an example. A study had UK and US respondents talk about their perceptions of a statement to see what they thought it meant. The first statement was the phrase, "That's an interesting idea." 3 in 4 Americans believed this meant that their idea is impressive because
That has never meant that. Who are those 3 out of 4 Americans?
that is what that statement is directly communicating. That is an interesting idea. So I think you're saying that my idea is interesting. Compare that with the UK respondents. 1 out of 3 of them actually felt there was hidden meaning there, that you were saying actually their idea was not good. There are entire charts online to help people who
Let's look at this chart. I'm curious now. Um, right. I hear what you say. I disagree and do not want to discuss it further. Yeah, no, that sounds like that's what that's supposed to mean to me. He accepts my point of view. That has never been my experience with that phrase. With the greatest respect usually means you're about to be insulted so hard, right? I think you're an idiot. Yep, he's listening to me. No, no, you don't. The people who answered this have never been. I don't know. I don't know how to respond to this because I've oh god. That's not bad. That's good. That's poor. That's not bad to me. Yeah, no, that would be that's good because not bad implies that is not bad. All right, 3 for 3 with the Brits. Let's see what else we got here. That's a very brave proposal. I mean, that can only mean like you're crazy, right? You're insane. Or he thinks I have courage. Yeah, no, it's definitely that you're insane. Quite good. A bit disappointing or quite good. This is the first time I agree with the red column because I would take quite good at face value. Maybe I would read tone, but I don't always trust tone because I'm bad at reading tone. Um, I would suggest, which means do it, right? Do it or be prepared to justify yourself. Yeah, no, I'm with the UK on this one. What do we have? Think about the idea, but do what you like. Ned has never meant that in the history of humans. Um, oh, incidentally, or by the way, um, the primary purpose of our discussion is, yeah, no, usually the BT dubs is the meat and potatoes of the meeting. That's not very important. I mean, maybe, but really in my personal experiences, it's the second one. And I mean that in the US. I was wow, I was a bit disappointed at that. Yeah, no, you are not coming at this person is not a fan of you, and they do not like anything that you have done. Yeah, I am annoyed that, and it doesn't really matter. No, if someone says I was a bit disappointed, they are ready to kick you down the stairs. Um, Metaphorically, hopefully. Very interesting. Yeah, no, they're blowing smoke up here, but that is clearly nonsense. Ding ding. They are impressed. I would never ever assume that if someone said very interesting that they were being sincere. Um, I'll bear it in mind. Forgotten it already, or they'll probably do it. Mm, I actually don't really agree with either of these in my experience because, like, if I say it, I really will keep it in mind. Other people, dealer's choice. I don't know about this one. I'm sure it's my fault. That's usually code for I'm blaming you, but I'll fall on my sword publicly. Yeah, it's your fault, and why do they think it was their fault? They don't. And even I know that. You must come for dinner. Not a dinner invitation. Not. It's not an invitation, I'm just being polite. Or I will get a dinner invitation soon. No, definitely that second one. I almost agree. No, they do not agree with you even a little bit. Yeah, I don't agree at all. He's not far from agreement. I really don't fall into this red category at all. That's interesting. Um, I, I only have a few minor comments. You might as well just stick that in the shredder if that's what someone has to say about your stuff. I promise. Yeah, please rewrite completely. Yeah, stick it in the shredder, start over. How he's found a few typos. No, he would say, I have some, you made a typo. Or at least that's what someone should be saying. Let's be honest here. Could we consider some other options? That means your idea sucks, right? I don't like your idea. They have not yet decided. No, I'm pretty sure it's your idea sucks. What is that? Of this whole list, there was like one thing I agreed with the red, and the rest. Is this because like the only like PBS shared a lot, or they showed a lot of BBC sitcoms? We loved the Britcoms. It's what we were raised on. I didn't have Fox growing up. I didn't have the WB, and I am dating myself because it is the CW now. And I wouldn't have had that either. Like we had 3 PBS stations. Our antenna spun on the roof, and it got us PBS in 3 states. So got a lot of PBS, which showed a lot of British television and a lot of Canadian television, and I do think it probably helped affect my sense of humor. Let's continue.
Move to the UK, figure out what in the world British people are actually saying. The same charts don't exist for people moving to
According to that chart, I would actually do fairly well in England, and I don't think that I would. So I hope there are other better charts out there. But again, I have different experiences than you. We all have different experiences from each other.
To America because we don't need a chart. We're just going to tell you. Americans will typically
If people just told people, I would still have jobs.
Say if we don't like something or if we do. Obviously, there's a ton of nuance here when it comes down to region and personality. Typically, the East Coast in America tends to be more direct than the West Coast, for example, and there are classic examples of hidden.
When we were in California, we were hanging out with one of Pete's friends who is from the East Coast but lives on the West Coast, and he's like, I am only friends with East Coast people. It's kind of like the difference between being nice and being kind. New England is not nice. It is kind. We will move your stuff for you. We will make fun of your stuff while we're doing it. But we won't be like, oh yeah, we'll help, and then ghost you. I don't know that that's the case, and that's what the implication was. I just found it really interesting.
Meanings in America as well. A very famous one is a statement in the South where you say, bless their heart. This can mean that you think fondly of the person and would like to bless their heart.
Once in a blue moon. Once in a blue moon.
But it can also mean you think the person is the stupidest person you've ever met. And you do need some tonal cues to figure out which one is which.
That sickeningly syrup fake nice is used a lot, and it makes you think that they're being sincere, but they aren't. They are not.
But on the whole, in the US, we like to get to the point. If we think you're great, we'll tell you, and not in a sort of hidden coded language way, but in a, hey man, I think you're awesome and doing a great job kind of way. It's direct and doesn't leave room for confusion over whether someone is telling you you're doing a great job, but actually thinks you're terrible. Similar with directions. If we want you to close the window, we'll say, hey, can you close the window? Yes. And this is the communication style I was used to, hence my confusion and my first anecdote. However, the confusion usually only comes in for foreign visitors or new arrivals in the UK.
I'm sure the neurodivergent population has some feelings too, but I get that you're being more about the general public, and I respect that. This is a great video for all of my snark.
high context culture like the UK isn't confusing to those that are raised and exist within it, because they are raised to understand these hidden meanings and to talk this way. And in fact, the indirectness in the UK is sort of seen as part of the British charm. It reflects a value within the country of sort of downplaying things and having what is almost seen as good manners. In the US, it's not considered bad manners to be direct because we value that direct communication.
It depends on where you are, how direct you are, what company you're in, and let's see, what else have I been yelled at for? What faux pas have I also broken? Tone, specific words, eye contact. It's almost like I have a communication disorder.
Highly as part of our culture. Again, it's one of those things where we're not saying either country is wrong or smarter or any number of judgments. We're just exploring why things are the way they are. The types of communications used work well within both countries.
Kind of, because like I have so many questions that I am now afraid to ask, because every time I ask a question, I get my head bitten off for it. Again, I had to leave a workforce environment that was housed or staffed by people with experts in the field of working with people with disabilities, and they refused to listen to my words or even try to understand me most of the time. So in a perfect world, yes, hun, in a perfect world. Not for the disabled community, apparently.
You just get into a bit of trouble when they get mixed. I do question the number of times someone has told me something is quite good in the UK and I celebrated. Because
I would roll
in the
my
US,
eyes
that would
every
mean
time I heard that.
it was really good, or at least pretty good.
Yeah.
In the UK, it can mean that was average or that was not good at all. And you have to use a combination of body language and tone to figure it out. Now, again, like I talked about, this low context and high context scale, it's a spectrum. And compared to some other cultures, the UK can be considered a low context culture. There is still a degree of directness that is in UK communication that isn't in some other countries that require even more use of body language and implicit understanding.
Body language is so hard to figure out. Like, I used to work with some members of the deaf community, and I don't read facial expressions or body language very well at all. I had to study it just to get as far as I have, and I still have to think about it. I have a mental flow chart, like, okay, you're doing this. It doesn't work with ASL, and it's very frustrating. There's also just communication styles that I found extremely terse and offensive in written communications with the deaf community, but that was just how they talk, and I had to default to their communication style, which made me wildly uncomfortable, because the world is always about it. You have to adapt to the world around you, right? Not about adapting the world to you. Oh, I need to stop ranting.
But the UK is a much higher context culture than the US, and that's what we're comparing in this video. Other higher context cultures than the UK, aka ones that have even more hidden meanings, are places like Japan, China, much of Africa, as well as some other European countries like France. In addition to the US, on the low context end of the spectrum, we have places like Canada, Switzerland, and Germany. Other examples of this indirect style of communication in the UK that I found, some of which are pretty funny, are: number one, when Brits say, it's not quite what we expected. What they mean is, this is an absolute disaster bearing zero relation to what we need, and we are incredulous as to how you would even think this is appropriate.
If I hear that's not what I expected, I usually assume it is a catastrophe. A catastrophe.
Americans would take the phrase, it's not quite what we expected, and believe that means they just need a little bit more work until
maybe if they don't have trauma.
It is what you expect. It also goes for invitations. So if you bump into an American and you haven't seen them in a long time, and at the end you say, we should get together soon. An American is going to believe that invitation is actually coming. This is direct communication.
Depends on who it's coming from.
You say we should get together soon, you mean it, they're going to reach out and arrange it. Often in the UK, this is just a throwaway phrase to end a conversation or a situation, and you both know that you're not going to be getting together anytime soon. It goes unsaid. It's a shared understanding that you're not actually saying what you're meaning. Other examples are someone saying to each their own. This does not mean to each their own. Sometimes in the UK, it can mean you're wrong, but never mind.
Isn't that what it means? I've always taken it to mean that. Teach their own. I mean, I like to say, when I say it, I do mean teach their own, and different strokes for different folks. But I have found that when other people say it to me, and I don't care where they're from, it usually means they think that I am so wrong, but they don't have the energy to argue with me.
American would listen to this and be like, yeah, that's a nice statement. Everybody gets their own opinion, to each their own. They're not necessarily going to read into the negative connotation of a statement like that.
I do, but
what about if someone says in the UK, I'm just popping out for lunch, does anyone want anything? This is not an actual question. This is a statement that means I'm getting my lunch, please remain silent. Or if someone in the UK says, that conference was rather disorganized, an American would probably take this as it was a little bit disorganized.
No, it was a catastrophe.
Because an American would say, that conference was absolute chaos, which is probably what a Brit would be meaning by that statement. They've just toned it way down and used a sort of indirect language to describe what is happening. And a classic one in the UK workforce, someone might say, just whenever you get a minute. This is hugely difficult for people
Whenever you get a minute means now, 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 now. It never means when you have time or when it's good for you. Never in my life, ever.
Used to direct communication to understand. Typically, this is a British indirect way of saying, do this now. But if it's taken at face value, it means this is actually of lesser importance than what you might be working on right now. So when you get a minute, even if it's not now, can you eventually get around to this task?
Where in the US is she from originally? I am curious because that could also be why we could be having cultural differences just within the US, honestly.
As an American who moved to the UK, I struggled so much with this one. If they wanted me to do this now, why couldn't they just say, do this now? Now that brings me to the end of this video. Thanks very much for watching. If you're British, leave your comments below on what you might say versus what you might actually mean in different situations. I'd love to hear your examples, but I hope this video kind of explains a little bit for people on both sides of the pond about how and why we communicate the way we do. I'm not sure I will ever fully get used to British communication styles because I've been here 10 years and sometimes I'm still confused, but I'm getting better. Don't worry.
Okay, so I think that video is great, and I don't know why I resonate more with the British speech, like the British phrases or the British meanings of the common phrases. And maybe it is because like most of what I watched growing up were British sitcoms, so that's a lot where my frame of references will come from a lot of the time. But I also grew up in, American 90s society too, so I have that as well. But I believe that my autism is probably also part of the factor here as well. Hard to say. But I hope you found this interesting. Please go check her out. Great channel. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope this experiment works. And just like we're doing here, when all else fails, don't forget to check and roll.